it's my turn to teach you something new and fun. So I have selected a dog project, and it's a bandana for your favorite furry friend. I don't have a furry friend with me today, but it'll attach to the collar. It goes on the collar, and it's one of the bandanas that you don't have to tie. So my steps are: find your material that you want. I'm using a fat quarter. You measure the dog's collar that you're going to put it, the dog, you know, his collar, her collar. And this collar is 11 inches for my smaller dog. And then you cut an 11-inch square. My method of cutting an 11-inch square is to fold at a triangle at 11 inches. But you know what? I want this for my bigger dog, and she's 15, so I'm making a bigger square. So I'm folding at 15 and 15, and then I just rotary cut around the square, and you get your square. Second step is to mark this portion that goes at the edge of the collar. And my method for marking that is a 3-inch square on opposite sides of your square. So I mark 3 inches here, and I go to the other side and I put in 3 inches, and I mark it. And then I just press it down, both sides. That's a little finger press. So then you have these flat edges. Next step is I sew it down at 1/4 inch. You could sew all the way around your little rectangle, or it's a triangle now, on the edges, close to the edges, and even close to the folded edge, and you would have a nice clean finish. I prefer just to cut it off, the extra. So then you have this. Fold this piece right sides together, and you'll see that you have little flat ends. Stitch all the way around the opening, the triangle opening, but leave this flat edge open. That's where the collar belongs. Leave an opening in one side of your triangle sewing so that you can bring your, turn it. And this one is sewed around all the edges. I clipped off the point so that when I turn it, it'll turn nicely. And I've already started pulling it through the opening that I left. So I'm going to continue to pull it through. This is for the bigger dog, so it's a bigger bandana. And again, to get the size of the square, measure the collar. And I didn't even add anything onto that measurement for side seams or anything. Then I use my little point turner. You know, it could be your whatever you use to make it a nice clean point. And then I pressed it nice and flat. Of course, this one's not pressed flat. And then you're going to sew from this flat spot all the way straight across. And I went ahead and marked a line. It's about 1.25 inches. You sew all the way across, and that gives you the casing where your collar is inserted. And then you have a finished bandana for your four-legged friend. You could make them for your cat too if you so desired. But I have dogs, and I don't think my cat would wear it, so I'm sticking with dogs. Thank you, ladies. And now we have Miss Sandy to show us another idea today on Tuesday Tips.
Hi guys, we're actually going to come on this way. So,
just going to move the dog collars.
We're going to move the dog collars just a little bit. Right here we have the Butterick 6001. Super basic little blousey type thing. Seams across the shoulders, seams down the side. But, which I love to wear, but I was wanting to make it out of this linen, which is a leftover piece of something else. And perhaps you can you see the extra detail that's in there? Where did that detail come from? Well, it came from the fact that I didn't have enough fabric. So instead of cutting it on the fold, I added this extra little placket and put my seam on the inside. And now that I've extended the length of my fabric across, I can cut it out as normal. As you can see, the shirt is pretty much put together, but I wanted to show you some finishing techniques. We're going to start over here in the seam. What I'm doing is I'm modifying this Butterick pattern. They wanted me to put in a facing. I wanted bias instead. This is my seam allowance. If I were to flip this over just like this, over time that ridge would give me a super shiny spot and the thickness there would be really kind of gross. So we're going to grade the seams. Grading the seams gives us this step down where each of the layers of the fabric is softened. So like as I come this way, I can't hardly feel that through there at all. So I'm gonna flip my garment round about the other way again so that I'm looking at this. And I want the, sorry, I lost my sleeve a second. Where did it go? Okay, so the piece that's closest to my bias cuff, because it's going to fold around to the front facing should be the shortest cut. So here's my piece. My front is right here. This one's going to be my front facing piece. So I'm going to lift up just that first edge and grab these really, really beautiful Karen K. Buckley Wicked Sharp Scissors. Whoa! You should be envious. Unless you have some, and then you don't need to be jealous. So you see that I cut through that seam just so that it's easier for me to get this started. And I put a little bit of tension here with my fingers so that it runs smoothly and I can just come along. And for me, I usually do it about the scissor width and a half as I cut my way along. So I would go all the way around with that one. Now I'm going to pick up the next level, cut it down again, and now I'm going to give myself about a scissor width again as I come up. So you see, now I've got my 2 layers, and my 3rd layer up here is still a little long. So again, I'm going to make my little cut. This one's a little trickier to hang on to when I get it started, so sometimes I'll grab in and do this pivot, and I want to be taking off about that scissor width. Okay, so now I've got this beautifully graded seam that is going to step down against my garment. Another place that you might use something like this is when you are working on like a pillow sort of situation and you've got some extra piping or something that you don't want the ridge there. So to get it to sit like the front, this is the way it sits in the front. I have this really nice, see where the ridge is sitting on the back side? So from the front, you can't see it at all. And from the back side, that little seam ridge sits right there. There's this extra little piece of stitching right in here. That is called, well, I've forgotten what it's called.
Understitching.
Understitching. Thank you, Becky.
Yes, ma'am.
So that's what we're going to do with this guy right here. And we're going to go over to the sewing machine and we're going to actually use our edge stitch foot on that. So come on over. This is the edge stitch foot, number 10 on the Bernina. You see that we've got this little ridge that runs down. It differs from the blind hem stitch in that this hole is open. So you see there's no guide that runs along there. The edge of the guide stops before the opening. So tuck that guy back in. And now, what I want to be doing is I want to make sure that my edges are pressed toward the direction that I want things to turn. So in this case, it's toward the face of the garment because this is the direction I want it to turn. I'm going to start on the back side, and I'm going to lay the fabric right in against that edge foot. So, can you see? The guide edge is right in my little crease.
In the ditch.
In the ditch. And I'm going to move my needle over to a -4 position. And just work my way all the way around. Notice how I kind of smooth things both directions, but I'm not pulling hard because if I pull on it, I can actually force things out of alignment, and then I start getting warpage that makes me sad. I don't want to be sad when I'm sewing. Don't force things. Okay. I have a tendency when I get to this point to pull on this thread so that I can get my bobbin thread to come up and talk to me on the top. So I've got both of them there. And that just helps to make sure that I don't tangle things up underneath. And so again, I pull it, and you see that little white one coming forward, and I lift that guy out. Then I tie them together, because that's what my mama taught me. Now we're going to flip it around. Let's come on back over here to the right side, and when I work it around so, you see that that edge wants to stay towards the back, and I have that nice crisp piece. So then I would just pin it all the way around, use my edge stitch again, my edge foot again, bump my needle in the other direction, and run around the top stitching it. So one last little trick, we're going over to the ironing. By way of the ruler. Where did I leave the ruler?
There's a ruler over here.
Ruler over here. Okay.
Cool ruler.
This is a cool ruler. This is the hot ruler from Clover. And if you haven't played with one of these before, you probably should, because I'm pretty excited about it, which is unusual for me. Okay, so here is the interior of my garment. I want to turn up a narrow hem because this is the kind of shirt that I just tuck in, so I'm not needing the weight of it, I just need it to be finished. So when I fold my piece up here to my 1/4 inch line right there, I can just lay the iron right down on top of it and measure my other 1/4 and keep going all the way around. So the nice thing about this is I get a good crease out of it, and there's a lot less fiddling with that little ruler with the slidey part that always falls off. You know which one I'm talking about? The one that at home has tape on it to keep it in the right slidey spot? That one. And this guy can take the heat, so we can just be right there on it. Now, I'm just going to roll that up a second time. Go ahead and put my pins in it, and I'm ready for top stitching. Then I have a lovely blouse that I got to make out of my leftovers because I wasn't afraid to piece my shirt and get the parts that I needed to make it go. Aren't I lovely? Thanks, guys. Come see us again next Tuesday. We'll talk about blind hems. Bye.